I don't think they're going to put me in, but hey, we can ask the man himself.
Wrong Gillen.
Just let me live a little bit. Coach Danny Stone, welcome back to the Orange and Black Soccer Cast.
Thank you for having me, guys. Good to see you.
Likewise, Coach. It's been we discussed it a little bit ago. Probably 6 frustrating results for you, perhaps. Can you run us through what your vision for the preseason was and how things turned out?
Yeah, I mean, I think preseason is always a time that's it's always going to be a bit of an unknown time of the season in certain regards. There's a level of planning that you do going into preseason that is always best laid plans as far as how you want it to look. Of course, there's a lot of factors that go into preseason to prepare players and prepare a team for the beginning of the year. One of them, of course, is physically. The other is on the field and how the team play. And every preseason looks a little different from an opponent point of view as well. I think this year we've had probably the strongest preseason I've ever been part of with a USL club in terms of the quality of the opponents that we've faced. To open with 3 MLS teams was a fantastic thing for us. It put us straight into a situation where really there was very little time for us to bed in, I suppose, without facing obviously a very strong opponent in LAFC and LA Galaxy and Real Salt Lake as the first 3 games of the preseason. So there's a great side to that. It's a really, really positive thing. I think we're, in a lot of regards, we're fortunate that we are able to play those games. And so we were very pleased to get those in the schedule. And then, the next couple of weeks are a little closer to obviously USL opponents, and then we'll close it out this week with UCLA before we prepare ourselves for the first match of the season. But again, I think it's been a preseason that has tested us a lot, which we may find out is the best possible thing for us. It's it's a time where I've been part of so many preseasons now as a coach that it's very difficult and almost doesn't make a lot of sense to read into the game results in preseason. Having said that, as a team and as a club, we always, of course, go into every game wanting to compete well. But again, it's a time where through preseason we push players hard and we go into weeks. Last week, for example, I think was our heaviest physical week of the preseason by design, and around the game schedule that we had earlier in the preseason schedule. Last week was a very heavy week of training, and then finished the week with the heaviest minutes that we put players through in the games on the Saturday. And that's again by design. We know that that's a tough ask for players, and it's a physically heavy week, and that's part of it. And we put players through a physical stress that their body has to cope with and adapt to. But it's designed, obviously, to put players in a good place to move then into the season and into the next 7-8 months of competitive play in the USL season. So, there's a lot of, like I say, there's a lot of factors. You can, myself, same as I'm sure every coach, I set things out at the beginning of preseason. We have a calendar that we want to work to. We have a physical periodization that typically is designed around hopefully everybody being as healthy as possible and things being exactly in place as you'd like them. The reality is, and we know this as well, it never works straightforward in that direction with 100% certainty. We know this, so it's always an adjustment. There's always things to have to deal with, and again, we frame all of this as something to look at as a positive test for us. Whether it's players who carry knocks during preseason, which is normal, whether players who are obviously at different physical points, and of course the opponents that we face through the whole preseason schedule as well, I think has been excellent. So I'm pleased with those games, and to have those opponents is great. Again, of course, we always want to go and come out with results that go in our favour. That is a given, and that is stressed as an importance. And we don't forget this. But at the same time, we understand we are working towards a long season ahead of us. So we trust the process, and we put a lot of faith in that, and that's where we are as we speak right now today.
Coach, you mentioned it's a test, albeit a positive one, and it's a test for a surprisingly young squad. So what are you expecting from your younger players in 2026?
Honestly, I expect the same as I've expected, since I've been with the club, is that young players, we know as an organization, we put a value on having young players in the squad. We put a value on developing young players. We put a value on providing opportunities for young players. The task I pose to those younger players in the group is to earn and deserve what they are given in terms of their opportunities. That's very important. What I expect of them is first and foremost to learn how to be a good professional day in, day out. And again, that's part of preseason. What I expect of them is to compete for their place in the team with every other player, regardless of age. That's something that I expect of everybody. Again, all the way through preseason, that's part of it. And through the year here, I expect to see some good talent on display with young players, some of whom obviously we've seen with the organisation last year that we know. Pedro, for example, obviously has played a lot of games and a lot of minutes with the club, and of course will has earned a fantastic opportunity and move coming up here in the middle of the year over to Germany. But we also have some young players that are now taking those first steps into their professional career. Tyson Espio, who joined the club last year, but has really began the season, been away for a lot of preseason. These are kinds of situations that are both very positive on one hand, but Tyson with the national team setup has missed a large chunk of preseason. Jameer Johnson obviously joins the club coming into the year, and again, another talented young player that is beginning his first steps in the men's professional game. And these are players who we believe in, we know have talent, but there is a responsibility that they have to hold themselves to in order to develop and to become the player that we believe they have the potential to be. And potential is a word that I think is often used, but it's also a word that relies on guidance and support and coaching and teaching from not just coaches, but an organization, but also just as importantly, the player to take on their self-responsibility and do everything they can in order to achieve the level of potential that they might have. It's got to be from both sides. And so when you ask me what I expect of them, that's what I expect, is that they give themselves the best opportunity that they can to be the best that they can be and to earn everything that they might achieve here with the club and beyond.
Hey, Danny, it's awesome to have you back here. We always love talking with you, and and I have to say personally, thank you, because you're always very giving in your conversations with us and your conversations with me that we've had on several occasions. Just kind of an oddball question. We were talking about Kevin Partita, and Kevin Partita is now the quote unquote old man of the team, and everybody calls him Poppy. Do you refer to Kevin as Poppy as well, or do you just call him Kevin?
It's a good question. I mean, personally, I probably mostly refer to him as Kevin. Poppy, I think, is it's a common kind of nickname for him. A lot of the guys use that name, and I think on occasion, depending on the type of conversation that we're having from a staff point of view, occasionally we'll use that name as well, but I think for me, most of the time, I will call him Kevin for now, for sure.
That's a fair answer. In coming to and watching some of the preseason games, saw Mo War playing at the right back position.
Yeah.
Is this a discussion that you had with him prior to the start of preseason, saying, "Hey, we're looking at maybe using you here"? And frankly, in the 3 times I've been at the stadium since during the preseason, that's all I've seen him play. So how has he taken to that role? And again, was it a conversation that you had prior?
It was a conversation with Mo, yes, and I think if you look at the end of last season, Mo also finished the season playing there for us. Unfortunately, we've had several issues at right back. I think we lost 5 players at right back during the season last year, and so Mo ended up along with Malik Pinto finishing the year as a right back for us. Neither of them, I suppose, by primary position were a right back by trade, but both I felt handled it admirably and capably at the end of last season. And of course, utilising Mo a little bit now in that role through pre-season as well is, yes, it was a conversation with Mo. And as you know, Mo is a player who is both very flexible from a playing position point of view, but more so flexible and probably and willing, and will put an honest shift in any role that we ask him to do. And I've said many times about Mo, he's a fantastic teammate and member of what we do from a team point of view. And if I ask him to play as a centre forward, he will tell me no problem, that's what I do. If I ask him to play as a right fullback, he'll tell me, yep, no problem, that's what I'll do. And this is a great credit to Mo. And I think for him in preseason, he began the first couple of games of preseason in probably more that right winger role. But again, just sort of circumstances dictated that, we're short in a couple of areas from a positional point of view. And Mo has, again, capably and very diligently stepped into that right back role for us over the last handful of preseason games. Maybe not his primary role, and of course, probably not the role that he knows best. And he's going through, as he kind of was at the end of last season, a little bit of a crash course of, time and rhythm and learning that position, which, same as anybody in any position, it will take a few games for him to pick up a little more of the intricacies. That only comes with time doing it. But I'm really pleased with how he's slotted in there, and I agree with you. He's given a lot in that role in the preseason games that we've asked him to play that position, and he's more than capable. So, I hope what I'm saying here doesn't sound like Mo is a fill-in for us. I think he's a very capable player in that role, and has done a good job. I'm very pleased with Mo for the work he's put in.
Great. I've got 5 names that I'm going to say. I want you to just give me 1-2 words that you, as the head coach of Orange County Soccer Club, how you would describe them.
Yep.
Ethan Zubak.
You want me to give you 1 word?
1 or 2.
Okay. Ethan Zubak, I would say work rate and teammate.
Okay. Kevin Partina.
I would say experience and aggression.
Alex Rando.
Yeah, I'm still getting to know Alex much better, but so far I would say presence, and I would say shot stopper.
Marcelo Palomino.
I would say energy for sure, and creativity.
I got 1 more, and then I'm going to turn over to Matt and let him ask you a couple of questions. Liam McKinnon.
Liam, I would say physicality, and I would say goal threat. Hope that helps.
Absolutely. And when you come back on again in 2 or 3 months, I'm going to have 5 more names for you.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Or the same 5. See if he has the same answer.
Or the same 5.
Yeah.
How you doing, Danny? Good?
Yeah, doing well. Thank you. Yourself?
Doing all right. I've been thinking for 2 hours of trying to figure out how do I answer or ask this question. Because I know this is probably more of a private question over a beer type of thing than the podcast, but how do you navigate? Like, I'm fascinated by the young players. The team's moving in a direction where we're trying to develop young talent. And I'm always fascinated with kind of how you navigate the young players potentially getting minutes over a vet that, I don't want to say might be better, but how do you kind of navigate the situation with young players and deciding kind of minutes and stuff like that? I know it's probably tempting to say, whoever's better, but how do you kind of navigate that situation with the players, really?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's an element of course, the players that are performing best will generally be rewarded with minutes. That's certainly a big part of it. I think around that, again, there's a little more of perhaps a club philosophical point of view that we always consider. And again, this is I don't think what we're discussing here, although of course I won't divulge every conversation that we have. However, I don't think it's a secret that as an organization we promote this, and this is a big part of the fabric of who we are as a club, and part of the task with the team is to find that balance. Sometimes, yes, it's not an easy balance, and some of that is not so much down to, as I referred to earlier, the talent of the young players that we have involved with the club, But there is a process for young players to, again, to learn what it is to be consistently a professional footballer. And that's, that comes with ups and downs. And that comes also with a required level of patience from everybody that works with those players. And there are times where it is appropriate for them to play more minutes, and performance again is part of that. And it's also appropriate for at times for them not to be constantly exposed in the spotlight from starting games or from a selection point of view. There is a balance to that, and it's important. There's different times in a season. There's different games that are played in a season. There's we know in USL there's lots of different types of environments that we will face during a year. Of course, with the away schedule particularly, and so some of that we might choose. There are games where we need a little more experience in the team and on the field. There are other games and other opponents where we might assess, this is a great chance for us to expose a young player to some more minutes in this game, and the game suits that, and we might feel that the combination of players around those younger players are most beneficial for them. It's I certainly don't want to seem like I'm dodging the question here, but there's a lot of factors that come into it, and the reality is sometimes the choices are difficult, sometimes the choices pick themselves, and other times we certainly obviously have a club philosophy where we will help those players by selecting them in the most appropriate moments that we feel they can be successful in. Part of what we do is we want young players to be successful, and so part of our responsibility as a club is to put them into situations where that can happen. That is the case, and there's a lot of factors that go into that. Not always easy choices, but that I suppose, in the quickest kind of answer I can give, are some of the factors and some of the conversations that take place on a weekly basis throughout the season as to when it's most appropriate and right to expose and to reward young players with what they earn.
Yeah, it's something I could definitely talk to you for like an hour about, because I have so many questions about like how you navigate that with how you talk to the veterans about that and how they feel and how you navigate that. To me, it's just fascinating.
Yeah.
I remember Mourinho kind of made a comment about like protecting a young player, and that was something I never really considered until he said that, of like, why do you think I'm not playing him because he's not good enough? No, it's because if he gets exposed, that could kill his confidence and ruin his whole career.
Yeah.
So that's something I always just try to think about with younger players.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I will add to that, if you don't mind, just for a moment, is I think when we, the more senior players and the more experienced players in our group, and to be honest, a lot of those players we're talking kind of 20, 24-year-olds maybe, 20, right. 24-year-olds are some quite experienced players in our group. These players have, I think, a responsibility and an understanding of the club that they are part of. So that's also important. And, we appreciate these players in our group that we do task as being part of helping the development and aiding the development of the young players, and also at times shouldering more responsibility for the team around those younger players who are developing their craft. That's part of their role in the group, and that's very important as well.
Awesome. Yeah, the only other question I had that's relatively quick one maybe is, with young players in preseason, I feel like they're more, fit, or like a little easier for them to kind of get that up and running for the energy. What difference do you kind of notice with like a younger team versus maybe a team with more veterans of kind of how preseason shakes out in that regard?
Yeah, it's a really interesting this one, because it's preseason is not a one size fits all, and part of the ups and downs of preseason is balancing this. Not everybody is in the same physical spot coming in. Not everybody is in the same physical spot as we go through, 7 weeks of a preseason spell. I think typically the easy assumption is that young players will be fine. They'll bounce back. They'll survive a lot of game time. They'll survive a lot of training. They'll be okay. I think actually what we know is, in reality, again, same as a 16, 17-year-old younger player, and a Matteo Bunbury, the same, who's a couple of years older than that, but is still probably making his first steps into the full-time men's game in professional football. These are players whose bodies, and not only bodies but mentalities and day in day out grind of pre-season, they're doing this for the first time, and the intensity of the games are different, and the level of competition is different, and the demands on them physically through a pre-season with Orange County is different from anything they've experienced prior in youth football or MLS Next Pro settings and other places that they've played prior. So there is some caution involved with this, and it's, adaptation happens in lots of ways. The physical one is part of it. The more experienced players in the group who have been through pre-seasons at this level more than once before, they will tend to, of course, like anything with experience that we have in our lives, when you've done it before, you have a better way of navigating what's to come, and you recognize patterns, how you feel in relation to what's ahead of you through a preseason.
How to push your body.
How to push your body, how to recover your body, how to rest your body, knowing when you're in a good place to push, and knowing when you might need a little more time on the other aspect of it from a recovery point of view. But again, it's, preseason is very rarely, if ever in preseason, do you go into a game day feeling fresh as a player. It rarely happens. It really almost doesn't happen at all during a preseason, because you're either coming into the early minutes of games in preseason where you are not quite up to your fitness levels, or like I referred to last week, we're pushing very hard in training through the week, and so it's not like we've got to the Saturday in a what you'd normally consider a fresh place like you would during the season. It's a different task for players physically at this time of year, and so it's a good question. Yes, balancing that is the periodization physically across a week and also across a preseason period, where the reality is not every week in preseason looks the same. For example, we around the LAFC game, we kind of trained 9 days before, trained 9 days after that, with the single game in the middle of it. Then we have 3 games in 7 days with LA Galaxy, RSL, and El Paso. So there's very little training time in around that spell. And it's again, a lot of it is by design. Some of it is down to game schedules when you can, schedule with your opponents as well. But it doesn't all look the same through preseason. And again, I could show you a lovely looking calendar with all sorts of words and colours on it, and charts that say we're going to do this on this day, and these players are going to play this many minutes, and this is the perfect schedule with the perfect scenario. And the only probably reality we know is that will never quite happen the way that you design it. So you are constantly adjusting. We're protecting a couple of players over the last week or so. With, I know you mentioned Tom, Ethan as well, a couple of others who are protecting some injuries a little bit, but that's with a view that nothing turns into a long-term situation, obviously. And therefore, other players are playing heavy minutes. And again, these are good things if you want to frame it that way. It's very easy also to choose to see it in a different light. But again, I've been part of enough pre-seasons to know, you can read a lot into preseason, and you may read it all completely wrong. It's that sort of time of year. That's not to discount expectations, and that's not to discount conversations that go on internally with myself, the staff, and the players on what we expect of each other and what we feel we should be achieving, and what we most importantly what we view as is important ahead of us. But at the same time, I certainly am experienced enough now in pre-season work to know that A doesn't always equal B. It doesn't quite work that way often, and so we will stay grounded, we will stay realistic, we will stay hungry, and we will keep working hard through to the first game of the season, and then obviously every week past that.
I appreciate the answer. It's very detailed. I'll just close by saying that my favorite thing with preseason is if you win every game, you're going to win the league. If you lose every game, who cares? Preseason doesn't matter. You're going to win the league. So,
Danny, we have a couple of listener questions. First one, they are asking, are you a 3-5-2 coach? And if so, what would you prefer playing with more, 1 pivot or 2 pivot? And let me just add something to the end of this question. Sometime at a later date, could you please explain to me what the hell a pivot is?
Yeah, am I a 3-5-2 coach? I would say that's one system that I at times like to utilize. Yes, it hasn't been the most prevalent system that we've utilized to this point in my work with Orange County. We've generally played in different systems, mostly with a back 4. But that's not to say, previously I have used systems where we play with 3 centre backs, and then there's different ways of organising that ahead of things, ahead of that back line. I think to answer your next question, It all depends. If we want to play with two forwards, then you have choices of how you arrange the other three players. I think probably most often I would choose to play with a midfield three and two forwards. And so to answer your question, that probably comes with a little bit more of a single pivot. And the pivot, I think, refers mostly to probably your deeper lying midfield players. So that can either be a single, some people might say defensive midfield player, or number 6, or pivot. And that sometimes can be two central midfield players who play in deeper areas and will link the game a little bit closer, let's say, to the back line. So the pivots can be one or two, I suppose, most of the time in general systems, but it will refer to the deeper lying midfield players, I think, in people's thinking.
Got it.
All right. Coach, a couple more for you from the listeners. What was the biggest lesson learned from last season?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, this one, because I think we've had a lot of conversations around these aspects. I think the biggest lesson from last season for the club was for the team was to maintain consistency of motivation throughout the season, regardless of the flow of a season. You're going to have ups and downs in a year. I think we experienced a difficult time in the middle of the season with injuries and results and scheduling and kind of everything together in one. What we didn't do was allow that to affect the back end of the season from a consistency and our motivation to eventually qualify for the playoffs and to make a push through the playoffs as well. And I think the biggest lesson we can learn is that culturally this is very important. Culturally, you should never expect that things are going to be plain sailing. We know this in sport. Culturally, I felt it was the biggest thing that developed through the course of the season, through difficult spells and then through successful spells. The culture in that dressing room and throughout the building in the club became stronger and stronger as the season went. And I felt that was a huge factor, as I probably could point to even a shorter time, for the three months or so that I was with the club at the end of the 24 season. It was the same thing. We demanded that culture was good. We demanded that spirit and togetherness was good within the dressing room and within the players and the coaching staff. And I think we saw the same thing, to close the season out last year. That was probably the biggest lesson I feel that everybody should take, is that way of working and that, consistency in carrying on, keep going, stay the course, keep working and stay together. That was a huge success towards the end of last season, and that's something that I hope carries on into 2026.
Lovely. One final one from the listeners. What's the best advice you would give to a young coach? These are hours and hours of conversation to get here. I think if I was narrowing it down really to a nutshell and to probably initial advice, I would say there's nothing replaces getting out there and doing it. Nothing replaces getting out on the grass and working with players. And that doesn't matter if it's younger players, older players, girls, boys, any level of ability. It's all valuable. It's all time to practice and hone your craft in terms of what you do on the training field, how you deliver sessions, how you work with players, how you communicate. These are how you motivate, how, of course, then all the elements of, that you could talk about from a tactical point of view. But again, I think the biggest advice that I would give young coaches, especially, and I've been through this. I think my first decade as a full-time coach was exactly that. It was so many thousands of hours on the grass with every level and age group of team that you could imagine. And I look back at it now, and it was all so valuable to me. There's nothing that is not of value. And look and watch other coaches and look and watch other people deliver in ways that you think are good and ways that you don't like so much, because you can learn and take from all of it. But, it's like anybody in probably almost every industry, experience of doing it cannot be replicated and eventually cannot be replaced. So I would say get out there and do it, and do as many hours in as many different ways as possible, and keep honing your craft, keep learning from other people, and every day is a good day in that spell in your coaching career. In the early days, every day is a good day.
Thanks, Coach. While we let you go, any final messages to the fans for 2026?
Yeah, listen, I love it when I have the chance to do this. So I appreciate you offering me that platform. I think we always say anytime we can. I think last season we saw at home especially, we made our home stadium a place that was a very successful place for us and a very difficult place for opponents to come and play. And a big part of that is down to the fan support and the people that come and watch us. Not only at home, we know there's a lot of support when we go and play away from home as well. But the energy and the environment that's created at those home games was, I thought, excellent last year, and we cannot wait to be back out in front of people again this year. And our intention is to go and represent with a pride and with a passion and with a hunger that we want to go and achieve on behalf of the club and the community and everybody that supports us both home and away. So, again, it's important for me to say that we recognize it, we see it, and we feel it, most importantly, and we react to it. And it's, I say often that it reciprocates. The players will respond to the energy they feel. And I know, obviously, of course, the fans and the crowd that come to watch the team will do the same on their side. So it's so important. Everybody is so appreciated. We don't get enough times, often to say what I'm saying directly right now, but it is important that people know how we feel, and the season can't come quick enough for us. We can't wait to get back out there and do it again.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate you being here, and best of luck this year.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me. Enjoy it always. Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Danny.